Why did you come to East Cowes?
Well, because I remember reading an issue of the Flight magazine, and at the time I was living in Bristol, and I don't know, I couldn't like it up there. I thought I'd want to get back nearer my own home, having been born in Southampton and brought up. And I read that they were building a flying boat at a place in East Cowes. So I got on the phone, and about 3 days later the phone rang, would I come over for an interview? And that was it.
What was your work on the Princess Flying Boat?
Well, I was the radio observer on it. The radio equipment had never been used before on any aircraft, and the standard telephones and cables installed this whole system, and I had to do an assessment of it. The first flight was on the 22nd of August 1952. I was called in because they said, oh yeah, we're going to do some taxi tests. Came in, the crew and all that got together, and we went out to the Osborne Bay where the aircraft was moored, all got aboard and did the usual ground checks that you normally do. And he said, right, we'll now do a few taxi runs and see what happens. And Jeffrey Tyson, the chief test pilot, took the plane down, did a run, slow run at first, gradually increased, and before we knew it, we were in the air. So they decided to keep going, and doing all that. And that was that. And we stayed airborne for roughly about nearly half an hour in the air, flying around, covering the island most to show people, and then came back. And that was a day then, that was a flight, but just the first flight. Nothing spectacular, nobody knew about it, no photographers, no press. Lovely, it was.
What was she like inside?
It was on double deck. You had an upper and a lower deck on it. And of course, at the time on the flight, it was stripped inside, and all the flight observers, all the technicians, and everything else was in there, sitting at their shop. So it was quite a lot of room. Stand up everywhere, plenty of room, both top and bottom. 2 flights of stairs, one aft and one forward. So it was good, excellent. We never landed anywhere else except East Cowes, but in the meantime we did test runs to Boscombe Down, which is in Wiltshire, because that's where a lot of the experimental work was done. And then we flew on from there on to Bristol, where we showed off the plane to the Bristol Airplane Company, who built the engines. We did 2 round flights around the British Isles, right round, and then back again, testing on long, for endurance tests and whatnot. And that's how they built up. Every flight was a little bit more possessive than the previous one. We had to do 2 or 3 runs over Farnborough, and one of them we came down really low, to 50 feet above the runway, and this flaming thing come in. Everybody had never seen a big flying boat before, let alone that low. And it was so low that I was in the Astrodome. Now the Astrodome is on the top of the plane, and it's where the observers look to see the movement of the fins and everything on it, looking up. And I was looking up at the men on the hill, the famous hill at Farnborough, and that was that. We did 2 runs over there. This was actually made by the Saunders Road Princess apprentices, and it's made exactly to scale, and it was made in the model shop. On the day that she flew, we didn't know, of course, that it was going to fly, and I was home, and then I was called in to use some taxi trials, and so I said goodbye to the wife, and then when the wife went shopping in East Cowes with the children, and coming out of the East Cowes post office, she happened to look up, and right above her was the princess. She nearly had a heart attack. That was quite a surprise for her.